People either love or hate this game. I have had people say that this is the worst game in the series, that it gets boring quickly, the jump scares suck, and it's not scary whatsoever. Some argue a different story. Some people say that FNAF 3 is the best in the series, and has the most engaging gameplay the series has to offer. In this video, I will be going over my opinion on why I think FNAF 3 is either underrated or overrated. In FNAF 3, you have to defend yourself against the animatronic Springtrap. He roams the halls and works his way up to your office to kill you. You don't have any doors to help you, just cameras, audio lures, and ceiling vents. On top of that, we have the number of Phantom animatronics, which include Phantom Freddy, Phantom Chica, Phantom Foxy, Phantom Mangle, Phantom Marionette, and Phantom Balloon Boy. They can screw your game over in many different ways, mainly causing you to freak out and make you forget how to breathe. Otherwise, it's the same as all the other games. Survive until 6 AM for 5 nights, and you're set. But now to the question on whether this game is enjoyable or not. And to answer that, let's look at the other games first. The first 4 FNAF games have what we call a gameplay loop. Basically, survive the night, unlock the next night, survive animatronics. Pretty simple. So for the entirety of the game, we are pretty much doing the same thing the whole entire time. In FNAF 1, we have to watch the cameras, close the doors, and manage our power. In FNAF 2, we have to wind the music box, put a Freddy mask on, and flash the vents in the main door. In FNAF 4, we have to run around like a crackhead, listening for breathing at your door and shutting it when needed. FNAF 3, however, probably has the most complicated game loop I've ever seen. And I don't mean this necessarily in a bad way. FNAF 3's game loop is the most varied and altered out of all of them. This is because the game utilizes RNG the most. And to explain this, let's look at the other games again. All of the FNAF games utilize an RNG system for their characters, meaning using an AI generator system. Most animatronics will have a chance to move based on a movement opportunity, depending on their AI level. This is why in most FNAF games, it doesn't start to get that difficult until the second or third night, because each night the character AI level rises, making it more difficult with each night. Springtrap's AI is very similar to this. However, Springtrap is a little more complicated. There are ways to make him move faster, and sometimes Springtrap doesn't even care about his AI value at all. He will just move anyway. Being that in FNAF 3, Springtrap being the only real threat does make sense for him to act like that, and mostly entirely depends on your playthrough. If Springtrap decides to listen like he's supposed to, or he just does his own thing. As a result of this, the player has to either adapt to the situation or die trying to. The RNG in this game can be seen as a blessing or a curse. On one hand, the RNG prevents predictability, which in turn can make the game more scary. Which for a horror game, that's good. However, if Springtrap can constantly just one-shot you, it's understandable that the player can get frustrated. But normally Springtrap does what you want him to do, and it can make the gameplay a bit too easy at times. So if I'm being completely honest, I can see where people are coming from when they say that FNAF 3 is too easy and boring. Because on some playthroughs, you literally just have to guide him and that's it. But that can be at fault of the game's design. I feel like the RNG in the game can make Springtrap in the earlier nights pretty much not a threat whatsoever. However, that could be thrown out of the water if you encounter a phantom. Each phantom acts a little differently. However, most of them just cause a ventilation error, which in turn can make Springtrap's speed run all the way over to you. The phantoms provide plenty of variety to the gameplay, because being attacked by a phantom can cause immediate panic and requires you to act immediately. However, the downside is that the game completely overloads you with jump scares, which can just make them ineffective, because when you've seen the same thing about 20 times in one night, you kind of just get used to it at that point, which can make the game just not really that scary. This isn't great because this is meant to be a horror game, and you know, horror games are supposed to make you scared, you know, like shiver your timbers, stuff like that. However, the phantoms in my opinion are essential to the gameplay, and I feel like they do a great job making up for the crappy FNAF 3 gameplay loop, that being the slow gameplay. Although these do really only come up later in the nights, I do think FNAF 3's gameplay is underrated. It's the only game that forces you to actually utilize the camera system rather than just staying in one camera. Granted, I can understand that this game isn't for everyone, but honestly, I have come to like this gameplay loop. I know in my ranking video, I did crap on this game quite a bit, but I do think the gameplay is decent. The constant tug of war with Springtrap can definitely keep the player on the edge of their seats. And when you add in FNAF 3's ambience, which is probably the best ambience in the series, apart from FNAF 4, that is the best ambience ever, hands down. No one can change my mind. No one. This does all come together pretty good. Besides just gameplay, what does FNAF 3 have to offer? Besides the pretty good ambience, it introduced one of the most important characters in the FNAF series, Springtrap. Whether you hate or love this game, you cannot deny the impact Springtrap has had on the FNAF franchise. His design is amazing, and the story told with him throughout the games is extremely well executed, and is one of the first times we have seen a twist in a FNAF game. Well, besides Ruin, but we don't talk about Ruin. Ruin is trash. That being that Springtrap is the purple guy that killed all the kids, and that Springtrap design is super poetic, with him being in the same suit he used to kill the kids with. Now, this wasn't really explained in FNAF 3, but the impact can be felt throughout the whole series. So in conclusion, is FNAF 3 underrated or overrated? FNAF 3 definitely has its flaws, like its crappy jump scares, and some of the gameplay is a bit boring. But even with all that said, I still think that FNAF 3 is one of the most underrated FNAF games, and definitely deserves a bit more of a praise. That is basically all I have to say today. We are about halfway to 100 subscribers, so if you enjoy this, consider subscribing and dropping a like on the video. I love you guys, and that's it for me. Bye.